Go to chapter 12, cancer.
Well,
Okay, so for some of you, this topic may hit close to home. Maybe you have somebody in the family or a friend who's dealing with cancer or had dealt with it. So what do we always associate cancer with? And pain, correct? Yeah. So good thing also today is, I mean, this month we're celebrating breast cancer awareness, right? So educate your fellow women and men as well. Although breast cancer in males are a small population, but it is possible. For statistics wise, if you go to the American Cancer Society website and look at mortality and morbidity for male and female as far as cancer is concerned. So the top incidence is breast cancer for females, and then followed by prostate cancer in males. Then number two is colorectal, and then number three, I think, is lung and bronchial cancer. As far as mortality, though, breast cancer was number one in female for incidence, yeah, but the mortality is actually only number three. The top killer for both men and women is it remains bronchial and lung cancer. And then number two, equal for both genders is colorectal, and then followed by number three, mortality is breast for, breast for female, and then prostate for men. So that means is whatever we're doing with breast cancer research working?
Yeah.
Yes, because even though it's number one incidence, it's only the number three killer, right? So we continue our support for cancer research, breast cancer research, and treatment, okay, and more importantly on education. Okay, so discuss primary prevention shortly. We'll go to the American Cancer Society website. Okay. The how cancer developed, we this is not testable. So let me just describe it to you. All of us have cancer risk. Okay, everybody does because imagine how we were conceived. So we have the characteristics of cancer, which is all cancer cells rapidly divide. Okay, they are it's amazing cell division. They multiply so fast. Okay, in such a small time, their size can increase, okay, aggressively. So it's similar to when we were conceived. So we were single cells, correct? So let's say Jamie, her parents, got together. Hey, what's up? And then, long story short, okay, so Jamie was one egg, and then she became two, and four, and 16, and so on. Okay, so she came from a single cell and then multiplied millions of times, okay, trillions of times. And then and then at birth also she continued her rapid growth. So during her first year of life, she'll double her height and triple her birth weight. Right? So imagine those characteristics. Doesn't that sound like cancer? Yes, especially in inside a uterus. So when we were single cell and then multiplied, that sounds like cancer, doesn't it? Yeah, so therefore we possess the characteristics possessed by cancer cells. Okay, we have the capacity. Okay, so we have um, that property of rapid cell division. However, think of it this way. So let's call the rapid cell division the gas pedal. So we call them what do you call the term that is rapidly dividing? Oncogenes. Okay, so they're oncogenes, and that's the term where oncology came from. Cancer, the study of cancer. So we have oncogenes which are responsible for our rapid cell division. So it's necessary for fetal growth, okay, embryonic development. It's necessary. So we call those cells oncogenes. Okay, so we have oncogenes, and then we also have suppressor genes, meaning at a certain point in our embryonic growth as well as fetal growth, it has to stop or slow down at some point, correct? I mean, we can't keep growing nonstop, or else we will all be giants and we won't fit into our clothes, okay? And we won't fit into cars, right? So we call the oncogenes as a gas pedal, and then we have suppressor genes, which will be the brake pedal. Okay, so gas and brake. So as long as there's a balance between the two, then there will be no cancer. Okay, because you have oncogenes, which promotes rapid growth, and then we also have suppressor genes, which will stop it at a certain point. However, the theory is if we are exposed to certain carcinogens, some carcinogens we know, like tobacco, we have certain chemicals, here we have foods or other substances. California has the longest list, okay, followed by, I don't know which is the second most strict state, but I know California has the longest list. And then we have so as long as we're not exposed to carcinogens, we should be fine. But because again, we have those oncogenes, once exposed to certain carcinogens, then we have the chance of developing cancer cells, whether that's colorectal or breast cancer or whatever other, let's say, bone marrow cancers as well, like leukemia, right? Next, let's differentiate between benign and malignant cancer cells. This term anaplasia is here the pattern of growth which lacks the normal cell characteristics, meaning the cells do not possess a certain distinct shape. Unlike, let's say, your breast cells, for instance, or your brain cells, we can identify them clearly under the microscope. So if we get a tissue sample of your brain or your breast tissue, they look distinct, meaning you can't mistake a brain cell from a breast cell. Okay, so they have a distinct shape. They have a this certain size of the nucleus over the cytoplasm, meaning the ratio is quite huge, right? I mean, the nucleus, of course, is smaller than the rest of the cytoplasm, right? That's what normal cells are supposed to look like. When we say anaplasia, usually these are malignant cells because they do not possess a certain shape. Meaning one cancer cell will differ from another cancer cell. They do not have a predictable appearance. Let's look at table 12-1. So here you have a side-by-side comparison. I would have liked it if there was a fourth column so that we can compare them from a normal cell. I would have wanted the normal cell characteristics right in the middle, okay, on the third column. But here we are. So if we have benign, so of course, which ones do we want to have if we ever have cancer? Benign or malignant? Would rather have benign. So as far as the cell characteristics, so cells, when we say well differentiated, that means a cell has a specific function. Believe it or not, benign cancer cells still perform a specific function. Okay, just like the cells where it grew from. Okay, so it serves some purpose. However, because of their rapid growth and cell division, of course, they become more hungry, right? So therefore, the faster they grow, then the more energy they will sap, depriving the rest of the normal cells of nutrition and energy. So basically, we have a finite supply of nutrients, and then we will be robbed by these benign cells. Okay, Malignant cells, however, are undifferentiated, meaning they're just there for free board and lodging. They have no physiologic purpose whatsoever. They serve no benefit to the body. They're there occupying space, eating and drinking for free, and causing harm to the host. Mode of growth, benign tumors, yes, they grow by expansion. However, they cannot infiltrate surrounding tissues. They can, however, box them out, meaning, yes, they do not infiltrate, so therefore they cannot enter the bloodstream. That includes arterial, venous, or lymphatic circulation. So they stay where they are growing. However, since they have no limit to their growth, they can eventually still cause harm. What I mean is, so let's say you have a benign colon cancer versus if you have a benign brain cancer. Because of the location, can you expand the skull? No. So therefore, if you have a benign tumor growing inside the skull, can it possibly kill you? Yes, because it will cause ischemia around healthy tissue. So it will cause, because it's occupying space, so it will compress brain tissue, obstruct CSF drainage flow, and then cause increased intracranial pressure, and then the patient dies. All right. So even though it's benign, it can kill. However, if you have a benign tumor, let's say in the abdomen, in the abdominal cavity, is it likely to kill you? Probably not. Your belly will just grow, but then because there's so much room to expand, it probably won't kill the person. Okay, maybe eventually, but not likely. Does that make sense? Okay. Here in malignant cells, they spread. So they do not stay in one section. So these are the types of cancers that can spread to multiple organs. And once they enter the bloodstream, either the lymphatic or the arterial circulation, then there's no limit as to where they can go. Rate of growth, well, comparatively speaking, if you compare benign and malignant, benign is slower compared to malignant cells. Metastasis, this is again the capacity to spread. The way we describe is this way. If you have benign tumor cells, they are usually tightly adhered. What does that mean? They're tightly adhered. So they are stuck to the normal cells, to the organ where they are growing. So let's say it's in the breast, it's tightly adhered there. Whereas in malignant cells, they are not tightly adhered. So therefore, if they're not tightly adhered, they're loosely adhered, can they spread? Yes, they can leave the host organ and then spread elsewhere. And same idea here. So it's usually either localized versus metastatic. Tissue destruction, as I described earlier, because of the rapid and aggressive growth of malignant cells. So they do not only compress the surrounding tissues and organs, they can spread and cause problems elsewhere. Whereas benign, as an example I gave you, it depends really on the location. And same thing here, ability to cause death. Yes, benign cancer can cause death depending on its location. Where is it growing? I already described carcinogenesis. This is again when our bodies are exposed to carcinogens, and depending on the amount and the duration of that exposure, then the likelihood that we will develop cancer eventually. We'll skip through that. It's not really testable, but it's nice to know. So what are known carcinogens? So we know about, again, I mentioned tobacco, certain chemicals, but we also have viruses and bacteria. So that means, can certain cancers be prevented? Yes, for example, HPV vaccines are known to cause colorectal and anal cancer. So we have vaccines against HPV, and you know that they've expanded it to adults now. Yeah. So check with your doctor, maybe you're eligible. Yes, and it's also gonna cause anal cancer as well. Another is hepatitis C or hepatitis B. They've been linked to cancer as well. So if you have a vaccine against hepatitis B, then you are essentially, protecting against liver cancer and etc. So we know about tobacco, but be aware though that tobacco is not just for lung and bronchial cancer. It's been linked to colon, breast, liver, multiple cancers. Okay, it's not limited to the respiratory system. Sun exposure is another one. Okay, so we know about melanoma, okay, caused by not only ultraviolet rays but also from tanning booths as well, because those are ultraviolet exposure just the same. And with viruses, we also know that from HIV. Yeah, so HIV or AIDS patients develop, what do we call that skin cancer that they get? Starts with a K. It's Kaposi sarcoma, remember? Yeah, Kaposi sarcoma. That is malignant. Okay. So another is radiation. Now there's two types of radiation here. We have therapeutic radiation, which we use to treat cancer, and then also we have industrial radiation, which is found in nuclear power plants and also in nuclear weapons facilities. Either way, they are radioactive substances. Okay, so that's why they warn you. So let's say you have cancer and your doctor advised radiation treatment. Part of the education when they get you consent is you will be told that you may develop a different type of cancer later on because of the radiation exposure. So the radiation we use to kill cancer can potentially cause other cancers in decades later. So we already talked about chemical agents. Table 12-2, how is this used on the NCLEX? Well, generally speaking, if something ends with carcinoma or sarcoma, those are malignant tumors. Because the cancer, the name of the cancer, let's say adenocarcinoma. So when you say adenocarcinoma, so that involves when we say adeno, that is referring to endocrine gland, right? The pituitary or the adrenal. So we can have either adrenal adenoma or pituitary adenoma, okay? But an oma, as long as it's not sarcoma or not carcinoma, that's usually benign, okay? So when a cancer name ends with a suffix of oma, with the exception of melanoma, of course, melanoma has no benign form, so all melanomas are malignant. Okay?
So myeloma.
Yeah, so this is important basically when you're providing education to the patient. Now, yes, we do not give the patient the medical diagnosis, meaning we're not the ones explaining it. However, we can supplement that education. Because let's say, Sophia, are you a mother? Not yet. Who's a mom here? Morley? No. Shirley. Okay, here. How many children do you have? Three? Oh, okay. So let's say you were diagnosed today with breast cancer. Say, oh, it's malignant. What's the first thing on your mind?
Okay.
The doctor though will try to explain to you the prognosis, the options for treatment, and then your chances of survival. Right? Are you really in the right mind to listen to all that? Because what state of mind do you have right now? You're grieving, right? So you have anticipatory grieving. I'm gonna die. Not gonna see my kids grow up. Okay, I have to, you're already planning, okay, what am I gonna do right? Who's gonna take them to school? There's treatment, so you're not really listening very well to the um to the care plan, right? So later, because you're still in what's the first stage of grieving? Okay, you're still at denial, and then later on you'll have the anger, right? And then before bargaining, and then so we don't know when you'll move on to the grieving process. So is the doctor gonna wait around? Will the doctor say, okay, I'll be here until you're ready? Okay. No, they'll move on. Okay. Who's there when you finally get to the acceptance phase? Typically it's the nurse. Okay, so it's you as the nurse now. You have this opportunity to supplement the education. Are you gonna say, wait right there? Okay, I'm gonna go get the doctor so you can speak. And is the doctor gonna be available? No. So you'll have to know certain things. Okay, so this time you are now going to supplement what the doctor just explained. However long that ago that was. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's say if she has diagnosed with osteocarcinoma or osteosarcoma, sorry. And then Shirley says, oh, I'm so glad this thing's benign. I thought I was going to die. Osteosarcoma is a malignant cancer. She's going to lose her leg. She doesn't cut off her leg, she'll lose her life. So there's really no leg to save here. Trying to save her life, we have to cut off that leg. So how are you gonna say it? Are you gonna say, are you okay? No, of course you're gonna provide education, right? So what do you understand about the diagnosis? Okay, so this is now a very good teaching moment. Does that make sense? Okay, again, you don't want to waste that opportunity by, waiting for the doctor. Does that make sense? So you have to have some knowledge, to a certain degree. We also have genetics. Okay, so certain cancer genes are run in families. Example, BRCA genes, BRCA1, BRCA2. Okay. Lifestyle, again, smoking and then too much alcohol, okay, or too much red meat or fat in the diet, for instance, sedentary lifestyle, obesity. And immune system. So proof that your immune system plays a role in cancer prevention or cancer, the fight against cancer is the HIV patient. So therefore, why do AIDS patients develop Kaposi sarcoma? So that's proof that our immune system do kill cancer cells. So therefore, if you have a suppressed immune system, then you're prone to cancer.
You said our immune system kills cancer cells?
Yeah, they can identify because it's the same thing. So if they identify a foreign object, remember HLA rejection? So if they identify an organism, a cell that, different HLA, they'll kill it. Okay, so that includes, malignant cells. However, it may be a challenge with with benign cancer though. So if you learn about immunotherapy, so that can be challenging because benign cancer cells look like normal cells. So they're not easily identifiable by the immune system. So it's harder to treat. However, at least they're not really aggressive. Okay, they're not really higher mortality, it's lesser mortality. But yes, immune system immunotherapy is very effective against malignant cancer because they look different, they're easily identifiable. All right, let's go now to prevention. There are two levels of prevention. We have primary and secondary prevention. On the exam, you should be able to recognize between primary and secondary. So what falls under primary prevention? Thank you for reading the first statement.
Primary prevention is about reducing the risks of disease through health promotion and risk reduction strategy.
Okay, so about reducing the risk through health promotion and risk reduction. So what can fall under here? So you have a few examples here. I may add a few later. examples here is immunization. Okay, so you're reducing the risk, right? Meaning you're protecting against HPV, protecting against hepatitis B. You get the vaccine, then you avoid liver or anal or rectal cancer. Okay. Another example is what about stopping smoking? Yes, that's risk reduction. Health promotion, what are the examples? I eat fruits and vegetables, high fiber. Okay.
No red
Yeah,
meat.
no red meat or maybe just a little bit of red meat. Okay. I'm not gonna go with no red meat. Okay. I like bacon, right? So, maybe a little bit, one bacon a month, maybe something like that. Okay, but mostly fruits, vegetables, right? And quinoa, for instance, all high fiber choices are even better if I go vegetarian, right? Although that'll never happen. So those are all primary prevention.
What about sunscreen?
Oh yes, that's also another primary prevention. Okay, so you're reducing the risk. So sun exposure, UV exposure is harmful, so you put on sunscreen. Okay, so anything that reduces the risk and also promotes health. What falls under secondary? Secondary prevention is screening and early detection. So therefore, when I do self-breast examination, is that primary or secondary? That's now secondary. Okay. What if I go get a pap smear? Secondary. A colonoscopy? Secondary. Okay, so when it involves testing and screening, then they will fall under secondary. Some also, because this paragraph here will talk about chemo prevention. This is also possible if your insurance covers it. So let's say the the patient has high risk for cancer, but then the doctor, for example, advises chemo prevention. In some cases, this is applicable and appropriate. That will still fall under primary prevention, actually. Because remember, secondary is screening and early detection. So chemo prevention will actually fall under primary.
Oh, really?
All right? Yeah, for that purpose, though, chemo prevention. Again, look at the term. In primary, it's reducing the risk and health promotion. And secondary prevention is only screening and early detection.
Well, why would you get chemo if you don't have cancer?
Again, it's hard to explain, but there are certain individuals who have that high risk, and then certain oncologists will advise to give chemo. There is a tertiary prevention. Now, tertiary prevention usually involves cancer survivors. So let's say you were treated for a certain type of cancer, and then you survived, but then we need to track you. We need to surveil you regularly for a number of years to see if it came back or not. Another example is, let's say you received radiation. Remember what I said about radiation earlier? What could happen if you receive radiation to treat cancer? You may develop another type of cancer. So that will fall under tertiary prevention now. Okay, to see and monitor surveillance of cancer survivors for the return, possible return of cancer or the development of a new one. Chart 12-2, so this will be about health promotion for nutrition and physical activity. For instance, this will also involve lifestyle changes, stop smoking, moderate alcohol intake, exercise, and weight loss. I'll let you read that. Any questions about primary, secondary, and tertiary? Okay. Do we need a break?
Do we get to leave early?
No.
Yeah, at 3:59. Otherwise, it'll be 4 o'clock.
We get to leave.
Do you want 359 or 4? Let's see. Yeah, I thought so. I will, in a while, I will. Okay. All right. So let's go to diagnosis. All right. So, what are ways we can diagnose cancer? First, let's look at the goals first. Okay. One is to, number one, determine the presence and extent. Regarding number one, we'll talk about staging of cancer. Then next is possible disease metastasis, and then finally evaluate function involved, or how many organs are we talking about here, and then finally obtain tissue samples. So the number four will make the diagnosis complete, meaning we will literally be able to identify cancer by looking at it, seeing it for ourselves, and not just a CAT scan or an MRI. We need to actually see the actual tissue. Okay, we need to study it. What type of cancer? Is this benign or tumor or malignant? Okay, what does it look like? Right? Okay, so you're talking about primary versus secondary tumors. Okay, so when we say primary tumors, that is the original cancer. When we say secondary tumors, this will only happen if it's a metastatic cancer or malignant cancer. Okay, so how they do it is, let's say initially you have symptoms. Let's say you are having abnormal bleeding, right? It's not your period, it's not time for your period, but then you're bleeding. You submit to your OBGYN, they examine you, they feel something. Oh, I feel something weird, okay, around your cervix. Let's do a pap smear. Okay, so they get a pap smear and then they look at it. Oh, this is suspicious. Okay, this is depends. So let's say the cells, there was a tumor there, and they saw that the tumors look like cervical cells. So what's that likely to be? Benign or malignant? They look like cervical cells. They're usually benign. What if, let's say, when they took a tissue sample, it looks like breast cells? What is a breast cell doing in the cervix? Or something that looks like a breast tissue cell, but it's in the cervix. What is it doing there? It's probably a secondary tumor. So now they'll go look for other tumors, because now that there's evidence of spread in one body system, there could be spread elsewhere. So they'll probably send you for a PET scan, look at the whole body, okay, and look for things that don't belong. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's usually the how they tell whether it's a primary tumor or a secondary tumor.
Like multiple myeloma.
I'm not a oncologist, but in my understanding, yeah, same thing. We do tissue biopsy. Yeah, we need to get a tissue sample, okay, of your bone marrow, or if you grew tumors, then we need a sample of those tumors. We need a biopsy. PCP, no, PCPs will refer you to an oncologist, depending on your type of cancer, because there are hematologists, hemo-oncology, deal with blood cancers, and then all others. And there's also specialties in cancer, and also there's also a specialty in cancer treatment. Okay. So here's an idea about the screening guidelines. However, this textbook is old. Table 12-3, therefore, is when was this book published? 2021 or updated? 2021, I think. So this is no longer updated. So we'll go to the Cancer Society website. So just type in cancer.org. Cancer.org. Now the homepage will change every few weeks. Okay, so don't look at and expect the homepage to look the same. Right? They change the pictures, they change the message. However, we're looking for the cancer screening. So just scroll down on the homepage until you see screening. Right here, get screened. So click on that. Can either go by age, right here, cancer screening by age. Right. Well, how did I get here? Again, go to the homepage, cancer.org, and then scroll down, look for the link that says get screened, and then it will take me to this page. So get screened. This would be the easiest for me. Okay, so usually they display this in a different way, but I think this is easier. So what's the earliest age? Oh, by the way, this screening guidelines from cancer.org, which is American Cancer Society, is only for those who have average risk for cancer, which means like the most of the population are average risk. However, if you have cancer in your family or you have symptoms suspicious for cancer, are you still average risk? No, you are above average risk now. So does this apply to you? Of course not. Who does this apply to again? People with average risk for cancer, meaning no cancer history in the family and no symptoms of cancer. Are we in agreement? Okay. Because you may get confused, like, I had a pap smear when I was 18. Well, there must have been a reason for that, okay? But it wasn't for general cancer screening. Are we on the same page? Okay. Like I said, this changes. Let me give you an example. I started teaching in 2008. 2008, cancer.org said that for cervical cancer screening, it just said all sexually active women. So if you have a 9-year-old who's sexually active, do we screen them for cervical cancer? Yes. And then they changed it to 18, and then 19, and then 21, and then now this is the latest. It's now 25 to 39. Right? So why do they change this? This is American Cancer Society. So they gather data throughout all the states. Okay, so then they make these recommendations based, of course, on evidence. Okay, so how many cervical cancer cases do we have there? And how old are they? So obviously, are cervical cancer cases rising among people below 25? No. Okay, so they based on data, it's between 25 and 39. So that's their recommendation currently. Can this change over time? Of course. Okay, again, this is American Cancer Society. They are they're the man. Okay, they're the experts on cancer treatment and research. It is federally funded. Okay, so you have to trust these guys. All right. And whatever policies they come up with, so let's say when they say, oh, age 25 to 39 for cervical cancer screening, what do you think will the insurance do? They're forced to cover this because this is policy. Okay, so this is health department policy. So insurance company can't deny coverage if you're between 29 and 25 and 39. Any questions? All right, next. Between 40 and 49, here are the recommended screening. Breast cancer, beginning at age 45. However, you have the option to begin at 40. Is that clear? Starts at 45, however, you're 40. Can you opt for getting screened? And will the insurance cover it? Yes, because it says so on American Cancer Society website. Next, cervical screening. Yeah, of course, this will continue because you're still, between 40 and you stop at 39. Colorectal cancer is now 45. Now, this again, age changed. So lately, 2016 was the last time I saw 50. But now they dropped it to 45. What's the significance? What does that mean? More and more younger people are getting colorectal cancer. So they dropped the age from 50 to 45 now. Good thing though, the screening doesn't, because before at 50, the recommendation was for you to get a colonoscopy or a sigmoidoscopy, which is very inconvenient because you have to do bowel prep, go there, you can't drive because you receive a sedative, and then you can't drive home, right? Then you'll be, you have to recover. So it's a hassle because you have to be clear liquid, bowel prep, they'll empty your bladder, you take a laxative. Now it's just a stool sample. That's it. Because they can detect colorectal cancer cells in your feces. Okay, so they just need a little smear of your feces, submit it, that's it. So there's there's nothing invasive about that, right? Okay. Then for prostate cancer, also age 45. Good thing with prostate, it's just PSA. Unless you submit to a rectal exam, your doctor can, of course, we're talking about males here. So for males, we'll just do a rectal exam and examine your prostate, whether it's enlarged or not. Okay, otherwise, if you refuse that more severe, yeah, that's fine. They'll just order a PSA level, okay, serum PSA, prostate specific antigen. And then 50 plus, these are now the recommendations. So breast cancer, continue. Cervical cancer screening, recommended. Colorectal cancer. For lung cancer, this is the easiest because there's really nothing invasive. For smokers, because they're high risk for cancer, starting at age 45, at age 50, all they need is a CAT scan. That's it. Just lay down on the table. They'll do a CAT scan of your chest. That's it. And then continue prostate cancer screening. So these are now the recommendations. This select all apply question. Any questions? How did we get here again on this page? Cancer.org. Go to get screened and then go to cancer screening guidelines by age. All right, let's take a break. Come back at 2:30.